The ball must be passed backwards, but it can travel forward. Okay, let's kick things off with what might just be the most misunderstood rule in all of rugby, the backward pass. You've probably heard this 100 times. You can't pass the ball forward in rugby, and yeah, that's technically true. But the moment you watch a game, you'll see players zipping passes that look like they're going forward, and yet the referee just lets it slide. No whistle, no penalty, no angry coach yelling from the sideline. What gives? Here's the thing, in rugby, it's not about where the ball ends up, it's about how it's passed. If you pass the ball backward out of your hands and your teammate is running onto it, the momentum of the play can make it look like the ball travelled forward. And that's totally fine. That's the entire point of what's called the momentum rule. So, if you and I are sprinting forward and I pass the ball straight across, or even slightly backward, but we're both moving fast, that ball could land 5 feet ahead of where I passed it from, and it's still legal. Why? Because I didn't pass forward out of my hands. That's the key. Now here's where things get a little spicy. Imagine being a brand new fan, you're watching your first game and you see what looks like a clean forward pass. Everyone else is cheering like nothing happened and you're sitting there like, wait, wasn't that illegal? Nope. That's just physics, my friend. Rugby physics, which is like regular physics but with more mud and shouting. And if you want to get extra geeky about it, there are actual diagrams showing that a pass can travel in a forward arc because of the speed of the players. Referees even use video replay to determine the trajectory out of the passer's hands, not the path of the ball in the air. But don't worry, not everything is this weirdly complicated. Well, actually, that's a lie. It kind of is. And speaking of things that feel backward, let's move on to a rule that sounds even more ridiculous. One where the ball is sitting right there on the ground, but touching it can get you penalised. You can't just pick the ball off the ground. All right, so imagine this. There's a loose ball right in front of you. It's just sitting there. Nobody's touching it. It's not moving. It's begging to be picked up. And your brain's like, easy win. Let me just grab that real quick. But if you do, penalty. Yep. In rugby, sometimes the most obvious thing to do is exactly what you're not allowed to do. This madness happens during, something called a ruck. And let me tell you, the ruck is where rugby goes full chaos mode. It starts when a player is tackled and brought to the ground and at least one player from each team binds over the ball. That's when the ball is considered in a ruck. Now here's the weird bit. Once the ruck has formed, you can't just reach in and pick the ball up with your hands. Nope, that's called handling in the ruck. And it's against the rules. You're only allowed to hook it back with your feet, like some kind of medieval trench battle. The whole idea is to keep the contest fair and safe, because if players were allowed to dive in and grab the ball, you'd have 10 people flinging themselves into a dog pile with arms flying and boots stomping. It's already messy enough without adding finger-snapping chaos. And what's wild is that this rule often catches even experienced players off guard. You'll see someone reach down in the heat of the moment and maybe thinking they're being the hero, and suddenly the ref's arm is up, the whistle blows, and they've just handed possession to the other team. All because the thing they forgot. Once there's a ruck, your hands are off limits. There is one exception though, and it's when you're the first player to arrive at the breakdown before the ruck is officially formed. If you're quick and there's no one else there yet, you can grab it. But the moment another body joins and binds, boom, ruck rules activate. It's basically like a secret booby trap in the middle of the field. It looks harmless, but one wrong move and suddenly your team is on the defensive. And if you think that's ridiculous, just wait until we get into the next one, where accidentally slapping the ball can get you a yellow card. Let's talk about knock-ons and why some are harmless and others feel like rugby's version of a felony. Knock-on versus intentional knock-on. Okay, now let's get into one of the most misunderstood and honestly most frustrating parts of rugby, the knock-on. At first glance, it's simple. A knock-on happens when the ball comes off your hand or arm and falls forward toward the opposition's try line, and you don't regather it before it hits the ground or another player. Result? Scrum to the other team. Easy, clean, makes sense. But then there's something called an intentional knock-on, and that's where the confusion begins. Let's break it down. Say the attacking team is trying to throw a quick pass and a defender reads the play. He sticks out a hand, just a quick reach, and slaps the ball down mid-air. Boom. Intercept denied. But wait, was he trying to catch it or just block it? If the referee thinks that slap was deliberate, not a genuine attempt to catch the ball, but just a disruptive swat that's an intentional knock-on, and that's a big deal. We're not talking about a simple scrum anymore. That's a penalty, and if the ref thinks it stopped a potential try, that's a yellow card, and the player sits out for 10 minutes. In some cases, it can even lead to a penalty try. So now you've got a situation where doing too little, missing a catch, gets you a scrum, but doing too much, trying to stop the play entirely without catching, gets you 10 minutes in the sin bin. It's a fine line. And trust me, it's one of the most debated calls in the sport. Fans will argue for hours about whether someone was going for the ball or just trying to kill the pass. Because from a distance, it all looks the same. A hand goes out, the ball hits the ground, and suddenly the ref is pointing, blowing the whistle and sending someone off. This rule gets even trickier in high-speed games where defenders are desperately trying to shut down overlaps. One slap too aggressive, boom, 10 minutes off the pitch. But if you're just clumsy and drop a ball cold, no punishment at all. It's wild, and this isn't some rare thing either. Intentional knock-ons pop up all the time in key moments, and the consequences are huge. It can change the momentum of an entire match, but as complicated as it is, it's all about intent. If you're trying to catch it, fine. If you're just swiping it away, that's when the game bites back. Now, speaking of intent, how about we talk about a rule where your teammate can make you illegal just by standing in the wrong place? Let's get into the weird world of offside after a kick and why chasing your own team's kick can break the rules. You can kick it, but you can't chase it. Alright, here's where rugby messes with your instincts. You're watching a match, your team is under pressure, and suddenly the fly half or fullback decides to launch a booming kick downfield. Perfect. That's territory gained. Now obviously the next move should be to chase it down and put the opposition under pressure, right? Makes total sense. The ball's in play and space is opening up, time to sprint. But here's the catch. If you're in front of the kicker when they strike the ball, you're not allowed to chase it at all. This isn't a grey area or a technicality, it's a flat-out offside offence. In rugby, once the ball is kicked, any player who is ahead of the kicker at the moment, their foot connects with the ball is considered offside, and that means they're completely removed from play. No chasing, no tackling, no influencing the next phase in any way. You might be just a few inches ahead of your teammate when the ball is kicked, but those inches matter, and if you keep running toward the play without getting put back onside, the referee will stop everything and award a penalty to the opposition, just like that. So, what does being put back onside even mean? It's quite simple, but it happens so quickly that it often confuses people. To become legal again, you either need to retreat until you're behind the kicker, which mid-sprint can be incredibly difficult, or the player who kicked the ball or another teammate who was onside has to run past you. Until one of those two things happens, you're a ghost. You're physically on the pitch, but in the eyes of the law, you might as well be standing on the moon. You cannot engage. If you do, even by just moving toward the ball or hovering near the receiver, the referee can call you for offside interference, and that's a costly mistake. What makes this rule especially brutal is that it's so easy to forget in the chaos of a live game. Kicks often come out of nowhere, especially in broken play situations or counter-attacks, and players are constantly on the move, repositioning, scanning, adjusting. So when a kick suddenly goes up and you're slightly ahead of the kicker, your natural reaction is to go for it. But rugby punishes that instinct. You have to have instant awareness of where you are in relation to your teammates and hold your run if you're not legal. And this isn't just about fairness or structure, it's also about giving defenders a fair chance. Without this rule, teams could just plant speedsters upfield in offside positions and then use deep kicks to create easy overlaps. That would kill any chance for a defensive line to reset and make rugby look more like American football, which is exactly what the laws are designed to avoid. In rugby, territory is earned, not handed out through loopholes. This offside from a kick rule comes into play in all kinds of tactical situations. Defensive kicks, attacking grubbers, cross-field chips, it applies to all of them. Even at the highest level, you'll see tries ruled out or pressure opportunities wasted because a winger got a bit too excited and didn't check his position before chasing. And fans watching at home, they don't always understand why the referee blew the whistle. It might look like a great kick and a perfect chase, but if one player was a step ahead when the ball left the boot, it doesn't matter how fast or clean the chase was, the ref will call it back, and suddenly The momentum swings, the other way. It's one of those rules that feels punishing until you understand the reasoning behind it, but once you do, it adds a whole new level of strategy to the kicking game. It's not just about distance or power, it's about timing, positioning, and awareness. Now let's switch gears and talk about something just as frustrating, but in a completely different way. What happens when you don't even touch the ball or the player, but you're still penalised? Yep, we're talking about obstruction and how simply standing in someone's way can bring your whole attack crashing down. Obstruction, you don't even have to touch anyone. Let's talk about one of the most frustrating rules in rugby, the obstruction law. Unlike in other sports where interference usually involves some kind of physical contact, in rugby you can get penalised just for being in the way. That's right, you don't have to shove anyone, block anyone, or tackle anyone. Simply standing in the wrong place at the wrong time, even by accident, can bring your entire move to a halt. Here's how it works. In rugby, once a player is running with the ball, their teammates are not allowed to get in the way of potential tacklers. You cannot run ahead of the ball carrier and screen them off, and you definitely can't stand in a position that prevents defenders from making a fair tackle. That's called obstruction, and referees are trained to pick it up immediately. And the thing is, obstruction doesn't have to be deliberate. It can happen completely unintentionally. Maybe your teammate tries to run a support line, but cuts too close in front of you, or maybe you're executing a set move off a scrum and someone steps into a defender's running lane. If the ref sees a defender's path blocked or even slightly altered because of your positioning, he's likely to blow the whistle even if there's no contact at all. This happens a lot with decoy runners. These are players who run into the defensive line without the ball, drawing defenders and creating space for someone else. But it's a perfectly legal tactic as long as the decoy doesn't interfere with anyone. But the second a decoy bumps into a defender or stands in their way, that becomes obstruction, and in many cases it wipes out what would have been a try. It gets even more frustrating when you watch a clean attacking move, maybe with beautiful passes, great timing, and a finish in the corner, only to have it all pulled back because of one player who didn't time their support line properly. Sometimes it's so subtle you need 3 replays to spot it, but the law is clear: you can't gain an advantage by blocking a defender, even accidentally. This is especially critical near the try line, where every metre matters. You'll often see teams setting up pods of forwards, running crash balls and shifting the point of contact. If one of those forwards crosses in front of the ball carrier and delays a tackle, the ref doesn't care whether it was part of the structure or just a misstep. He's giving a penalty for obstruction, and in a tight game, that can change everything. Players and coaches drill this constantly. Support runners are taught to trail slightly behind the ball carrier, not alongside or ahead, and decoys are told to run through the defensive line, not into it, because one small positioning error can undo 10 phases of build-up and hand possession, straight back to the other side. And for fans, it's often infuriating. You see your team score, the crowd erupts, and then the referee goes upstairs to check something off the ball. Next thing you know, he's signalling for obstruction, no try. And you're sitting there wondering how someone who didn't even touch the play just cost you 5 points. But again, it all comes back to fairness. Rugby is about contest between attacker and defender, between structure and reaction. If defenders can't reach the ball carrier because of a screen or a blocked path, the balance is broken. And so even if it seems harsh, the law protects that balance. Now, if you thought that was harsh, wait until we get into a rule that flips the whole idea of fairness on its head. One, where you can score a try by literally grounding the ball against the base of a goalpost. Yep, that's a thing. The post protector. Try. Well, not anymore. Now let's dive into one of the strangest, most head-scratching rules rugby ever had and how it quietly got erased. For years, there was this odd little loophole in the game that allowed you to score a try just by grounding the ball at the base of the goalpost, not in the in-goal area, not across the white line, just up against the padding around the post. And yes, it counted. Sounds bizarre, right? But for a long time, that was the law. If you touch the ball down where the post protector met the ground directly over the goal line, the referee would award a try, even if there were defenders wrapped around you and the ball never crossed the traditional try line. Why? That little patch of ground under the padding was technically part of the in-goal area. It was written into the law book in black and white. Now, in theory, this added an extra challenge for defending teams. They not only had to protect the line, but also make sure no one dived through the middle and touched the ball at the base of the upright. And attackers used that to their advantage, especially close to the try line. You'd see big forwards rumbling over from a short distance, reaching out, and instead of aiming for the whitewash, they'd lunge for the padding. And unless defenders were already in perfect position, it was nearly impossible to stop. It didn't happen often, but when it did, it always felt a little weird. You'd watch a massive phase battle unfold, bodies flying everywhere, and then out of nowhere, someone grounds the ball right at the bottom of the post protector. And suddenly, it's 5 points. Fans hated it, defenders hated it. Even most players found it awkward. It just didn't look like a proper try. But the bigger issue, the padding itself started becoming a problem. You'd have thick, rounded protectors that were hard to get your arms around, which made tackles awkward. Some teams started using extra wide post pads within the legal dimensions just to give their players a bigger target zone to ground the ball. And that's when people started questioning whether this rule really made sense anymore. So in 2020, World Rugby finally stepped in and rewrote the law. From then on, you could no longer score a try by grounding the ball against the base of the post. If you wanted to earn 5 points, the ball had to be grounded in the in-goal area, only not on the padding, not at the bottom of the upright. That change finally closed the loophole. And honestly, it made things a lot cleaner. What's wild is that this was a rule that existed for decades. Generations of players grew up learning about this little trick, and now it's gone. Just like that. And if you weren't watching closely, you might not even have noticed the change. But it's another reminder of how rugby evolves, sometimes slowly, sometimes suddenly, and how the laws constantly try to catch up with the way the game is played. So, there you have it. Rugby isn't just about brute strength and strategy. It's a game built on layers of technical rules that can be as baffling as they are brilliant. From kicks you're not allowed to chase, to invisible offside lines, to the once legal post protector try, every one of these rules exists for a reason. Sometimes to keep the game fair, sometimes to protect the flow, and sometimes just because that's how it's always been. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to check out our last 2 videos. Thank you.